Good evening, members. Hello, good evening, members, and welcome to this meeting of Full Council. I am Councillor Lynn Walters, Chairman of the Council, and I will be chairing this meeting this evening. Before we start tonight, please can I remind everyone that this meeting is being webcast via the Council's YouTube channel, and please can everyone in the chamber ensure that their mobile phones and devices are switched to silent to avoid any disruptions. This meeting is scheduled for 3 hours. I would be grateful if everyone could ensure that they keep their speeches concise and to the issue being considered. I will now proceed to the first item of business, agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies for absence from councillors Coleridge, Abraham, Thorogood, Beavis, Heath, Dervish, Walsh, Ayton and Finch. Are there any further apologies? Thank you, members. We will proceed to the next item on the agenda, item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests or non-registrable interests that they wish to declare this evening? If so, please can you state the item of the nature of the business? Thank you, members. There are no more declarations. We will proceed to the item agenda 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Members, we are asked to approve the minutes of the previous meeting of the full council held on the 4th of November, which have been circulated to all members, published and unpublished on the council's website. Please may I have a proposer to approve the minutes for an accurate record? Councillor Butland, thank you. Now may I have a seconder, please? Councillor Cunningham, thank you. The minutes have been approved and moved and are recorded as accurate. All those in favour, please indicate. The minutes have been approved. Thank you, members. I will now sign the minutes. Thank you, members. I will now proceed to item agenda 4, public question time. Members, we have no registered speakers for this evening, so I will proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is item 5, announcements and statements from the chairman and the leader of the council. Since the last council meeting in November, I have attended 8 engagements, which included the annual British Legion Remembrance Service parade held on the 10th of November. As usual, this was very well attended and it was in the public gardens, and I was honoured enough to lay a wreath on behalf of the council. I also attended the Braintree Rethink Art and Social Group for their 16th anniversary and the annual torch procession in the Halstead, which was a fantastic festive affair for the whole community. On Thursday, I am hosting my Christmas celebration in Braintree Town Hall. I will have entertainment from the Great Bradford Junior School choir, along with some festive refreshments and of course a charity raffle. I hope to see you all there. Before I move on to the next section of this item, I would like to make a presentation for this evening for the Long Service Award to a lady called Kathy Carpenter, and she's Senior Planning Officer. Kathy has given 45 years service to the council, and this evening will be recognised and acknowledged for her commitment. She began her career as a councillor at the council as a planning officer, planning assistant actually, in 1979. Wow, that's a few years ago. Before becoming a senior planner in 1991, a role she has continued to hold to this day. Cathy's role involves the ongoing monitoring of housing supply and other important information to support in support of the council's planning work, and the frequent defended of the council's housing supply appeals. We would like to take this opportunity to thank Cathy for her continued support and commitment and loyalty to the council over the past 5 years. Please can I invite Councillor Lynette Bowers-Flint to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I think I most probably am one of the few ones here who's been about nearly as long as Cathy. Cathy's dedication to this council is just unbelievable, and her knowledge is second to none. What she doesn't know about figures in this district of housing is unbelievable. But if anybody has had the opportunity to go to an appeal hearing and actually watch Cathy perform at her best, she should really be on the stage, because she has brought the place to a standstill with her knowledge and her arguments, and she will not back down with any inspector, and she is to be admired for the way that she's conducted herself throughout this. Cathy is such a loyal person to this district council. We are lucky to have her, Madam Chairman, and I would like to congratulate you and say, well done. You really do deserve a medal, Cathy, on your service. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Thank you, Councillor Bowers-Flint. I would like to invite Cathy to join me to receive a Long Service Award. Cathy, please come forward.
Grayson, are you being served? You know, except of course he was the boss, and I'm definitely not.
This is a wonderful achievement. 45 years. That is a lifetime. Well, somebody's lifetime.
I believe in local government, and I believe in the importance of it and the importance of the partnership between officers and councillors. And you stand for election, and officers don't. And yes, we need to remember that.
That's
I'm sure we do.
Well, that's for you.
Thank you.
And there's a card for you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, members. I would now like to invite Councillor Butland, Graham Butland, Leader of the Council, to make any announcements. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to make two brief statements, one on Wethersfield and one on devolution, and then with your permission, I would like to ask Councillor Wrench to make a statement to the Council regarding the audit of the Council's accounts in his role as Chairman of Audit and Governance, if that is okay with you. Okay, I'll begin with Wethersfield. Madam Chairman, you'll be aware that I was planning to update the Council this evening on Wethersfield, particularly in relation to the progress on the Special Development Order, as the Home Office had indicated that they were planning to discharge the remaining planning conditions by the end of November. Our latest understanding is that whilst the Home Office has sent information to MHCLG on the remaining outstanding conditions, there are still a number of discussions ongoing around this. Braintree District Council officers have not had sight of any of this documentation, but have been assured that they will be sent through as soon as finalised in order for these to be reviewed. There has been some progress since last time I updated you on the community funding, with the Home Office giving authority for some of our grant funding to be spent on improvements in relation to the adjacent highways and footpaths. Officers have made contact with ECC, Essex County Council, to identify the best way to progress this. Madam Chairman, if I get any further updates before the next council meeting on either the SDO progress or regarding the expenditure, I will make members aware. And the second item I would like to draw the attention of members to is regarding devolution. Further to the Chancellor's budget statement and my update to members at the November Council meeting, we still await the English devolution white paper, which we are informed could be published next week. Meanwhile, in the Local Government Finance Policy Statement published on the 28th of November, the Government reiterated its commitment to a, quote, permanent shift in power away from the centre, close quote, towards people and communities. Furthermore, the Government believes the creation of, quote, suitably sized, close quote, unitary councils will present significant opportunities to achieve efficiency savings and deliver, quote, sustainable, high-quality public services, close quote. As I said last time, we continue to work with partners across Essex to help to ensure that any proposed moves to create, in the Government's words, simpler structures make sense for our district and the services we provide. Once we are able to provide a fuller update following the publication of the white paper, I will arrange a briefing for all members, Madam Chairman. Those are my two statements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Sorry, Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Following the meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee on Wednesday the 27th of November, the Cabinet Member for Finance, Resources and Performance, Councillor Bowers, and I, as Chairman of the Governance and Audit Committee, wrote to all members regarding the latest position on local audits for Braintree District Council. As a result, members will be aware of the national issues inherent in the system for the external audit of local authority statements of accounts. A significant backlog has occurred over the past few years, and now the majority of local authorities have external audits that have not been completed. The issue has been recognised by the Government, and statutory arrangements have been put into place to reset the system and clear the backlog for the prior years and up into including 2022-23 by the backstop date of the 13th of December 2024. The external audit organisations appointed to carry out the external audits of local authorities mostly do not have the resource and capacity required to carry out full external audits for the outstanding years ahead of the backstop dates. Where this is the case, disclaimed opinions will be given. Braintree District Council has completed and published draft statements of accounts for all of the 4 years that are outstanding and covered by the December backstop date. These statements were completed in line with the deadlines that were in place at the end of each financial year. Our external auditors, BDO, have confirmed that an unqualified opinion is expected in relation to the audit of both the 2019-20 Statement of Accounts and the 2020-21 Statement of Accounts. This means that the audits for both of those years are completed and has given the auditors sufficient assurance that there are absolutely no concerns with the accounts. However, BDO have also confirmed that they will be issuing disclaimer of opinion for the statement for both 2021-22 and 2022-23. This disclaimer does not mean that the auditors have concerns regarding the accounts of those 2 years, rather that they do not have the required resources available to complete the detailed audit procedures that would be needed to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to issue unmodified audit reports. The disclaimed opinions are a frustrating and disappointing outcome for the Council, especially given the hard work undertaken by teams to get the Statement of Accounts produced and published in line with expectations and principles of transparency and accountability. I must say I remain concerned that BDO might not meet the backstop dates. I'm sure all members of this Council would agree that this situation cannot continue. I very much hope the outstanding work that they are required to complete will be done in line with the Government and Braintree District Council's expectations and the assurances given to the Governance and Audit Committee at our last meeting. Many other local authorities will be receiving disclaimed audit opinions for the same financial years, and Braintree District Council is by no means an outlier in this matter. It is very much a failure of the entire local audit system. The Council has a long track record of sound financial management, and until the backlog arose, there have been no issues with any prior external audits. BDO has carried out work to report on the Council's arrangements for value for money for those years covered by the disclaimed opinions. The report confirms they have identified no significant weaknesses in the Council's arrangements for securing economy, efficiency and effectiveness in the use of resources. I'd very much like to thank the Governance and Audit Committee, who have worked very hard to hold our external auditors to account for the non-delivery of full external audits. I would also like to thank officers for their continued dedication to the Council and for meeting all deadlines required of them in this process. While this is a frustrating outcome, we are encouraged that a solution has been put forward in place to resolve this issue. We do have to be realistic about audit outcomes for the next few years, as having disclaimed financial statements for 2022-23 will limit and inhibit the ability of the Council's current auditor, KPMG, to be able to gain sufficient assurance over all opening balances and transactions to provide an unqualified opinion. However, much work is being undertaken by the auditors and our finance team, and it is expected that the auditor will be able to report positively, and over time there will be an increasing level of assurance on the financial statements. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wrench. We will now deal with the agenda item 6, the presentation of the Essex Playing Fields Association Awards. I am delighted to invite Councillor Tom Cunningham to present to full council the Essex Playing Fields Association Awards. Councillor Cunningham.
Madam Chairman, I'm delighted to, as you say, present to council the awards won by our excellent operations team at the recent Essex Playing Fields Association Awards. It's an annual event which my predecessors had great enjoyment doing at the December Council, and I've certainly, this is the second year that I'm delighted to once again inform Council of our tremendous success. 3 certificates of merit, 1 silver award certificate, 5 gold award certificates, runner-up in Class 5 relating to the Spa Road Playing Field, and 1 winner's trophy for Class B, the John Ray Gardens in Black Notley. It's once again, it's a tremendous tribute to the very dedicated and passionate team in operations who work on this. Unlike previous years where we've invited them into council, they decided they didn't want to come with us this evening. I think I must have put them off last year. But we will be going down to the depot before Christmas to congratulate them personally, but obviously wanted to you as chairman to receive the awards on the council's behalf and join us in congratulating the team on another fantastic performance, and once again thank them for their continued dedication. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham, for your presentation. I am delighted to accept these awards on behalf of the Council. Thank you, members. I will now deal with agenda item 7, motion by Councillor Peter Schweer, support for our farming community. Councillor Schweer. Members, this motion report starts on page 5 of the agenda, and I can confirm that there are no amendments to this motion. Councillor Schweer and Councillor Parker, the proposer and seconder of the motion, are both present this evening for this motion, so this motion may proceed. Councillor Schweer, please, can you formally move the motion, and before you make your speech, it must be seconded. Councillor Schweer.
I so move, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schweer. Councillor Parker, you have recorded as a seconder of this motion. Please confirm that you second this motion, and if you wish to reserve your right to speak.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I second this motion. I reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Members, this motion has been formally moved and seconded. I will now invite Councillor Schweer to make his speech. Councillor Schweer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Getting confused.
You have all seen on the agenda the proposed motion before you tonight. The proposed changes to inheritance tax by the Labour government is going to affect many family farms, many more than the 500 per year quoted by the government. Estimates vary, but it could be near 2,500 farms a year, and it's thought it could leave an average family farm with a tax bill of about £250,000. This could open the floodgates for corporate buy-up over family ownership, leading to the stewardship of the countryside being fractured, with over 70% of land covered by family farms. This could be devastating. Across Braintree District, family farms are the lifeblood of the countryside. They contribute to local jobs, businesses, and essential services. Family farms increasingly play a leading role in nature recovery by embracing biodiversity and sustainability, land management whilst biodiversity and sustainable land management whilst mitigating climate change. The sale and fragmentation of these lands could well hinder the conservation efforts and undermine environmental issues. Agriculture isn't a distant concern, it's our daily bread, our shared prosperities and our collective heritage. Let's commit to protecting it, strengthening it, and passing it on to the next generation stronger than here, across Braintree District and across the whole of the UK. We should stand with our family farmers, support vibrant rural communities, and protect our environment by rejecting the government's family farm tax, and ask you to support tonight's motion. Thank you.
Do any members wish to speak on this motion? Please can I remind members if their speeches must be directed to the motion under discussion. Yes, John Ball. Who's going first? Anyone else like that? Okay. Thank you, members. May I invite Councillor Van Dolken to speak, sir, first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As I speak as one of the supporters of this motion and as the representative of a very, very rural area. And before I begin, I received a Christmas card today. I thought it was an omen, a very good omen. A lovely tractor, a sheepdog and some sheep. It may not be obvious to members representing town wards that much of Braintree District is very rural. Parish Council in one of the villages that I'm pleased to represent has farmers making up half of its membership. And there's no question in my mind that several of the changes announced in the recent budget will severely impact our rural communities and indeed threaten our food security nationally, if not modified as many are requesting. Farmers, and indeed the owners of small rural businesses, like Headingham Castle, which will lose half of its business property allowance, feel incredibly let down by what they rightly see as a threat or as threats to the future of their businesses, and by the apparent about-turn of the new government and its leaders. The current Prime Minister, whilst in opposition, addressed the NFU on at least two recent occasions in 2021 and 2023. It's illuminating to read or watch his speeches where he says, for instance, that losing a farm is not like losing any other business. It can't come back. He also referred to tenant farmers, who obviously rent their farms or their fields from established landowners, saying that these tenant farmers needed a fair deal they need to know that their futures are secured. Well, if the landowner's family has to sell fields to pay inheritance tax, you can see the problem. One final quote from one of the NFU conferences. Prime Minister Starmer wanted, or the leader of the opposition at the time, wanted Labour's next manifesto to offer as much hope and optimism to rural communities as to those who live in towns and cities. Well, I make no further comment. I'll finish by a direct quote from the chair of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs Committee. And I quote, "Agricultural property relief is not a loophole. It has been a deliberate policy of successive governments for the past 40 years, designed to avoid the sale and breaking up of family farms. These changes will have a ripple effect across the whole rural community." I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dolken. Can I invite Councillor Martin to speak next, please?
Labour came into power this year and found a multi-billion-pound black hole in our finances. The Tories just made up figures and had no plan to pay for anything. The budget was a unique chance to fix the foundations of the country instead of years of just papering over the cracks. People voted for the government to spend more money on the NHS, to get down waiting lists, sort out crumbling schools and fix the potholes ruining people's cars. The Tories had no plans and no money to do any of these things. The Labour government is not attacking farmers. Most farms will be unaffected by this change, and there are other tax reliefs to support farmers. Yes, wealthy landowners will have to pay more inheritance tax because of the budget, but Labour is protecting small family farmers. Independent economic experts like the Institute for Fiscal Studies have said that farmers will still be better treated than anyone else when it comes to inheritance tax. Farmers will benefit overall from Labour policies. This Labour government will boost rural economic growth and strengthen food security within our New Deal for farmers, protecting farmers in trade deals, lowering bills through GP Energy and cracking down on rural crime. Farming will benefit 2.4 billion investment into the agriculture budget, the largest ever directed to sustainable food production and nature's recovery. Apart from anything else, not all farmland is in the hands of actual farmers. The latest data shows more than half of all the farmland sold in 2023 was purchased by private or institutional investors. Why should these people pay less inheritance tax than other taxpayers? The motion we're discussing fails to recognise that the British people voted for change. Unlike the Tories, they want better public services and they understand that these need to be paid for. I oppose the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. May I invite Councillor Ball, please, to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The recent changes to inheritance tax rules present a terrible blow to our family farms in Braintree District, where we probably have around 170 square miles of agricultural land. And once again, central government has failed to carry out a proper impact assessment on the effect of these changes. They claim only 27% of farms will be affected, whilst DEFRA's own figures indicate over 50% will come to this category, and the NFU suggests that it might be 75% of farms. Furthermore, a freeze on the threshold will ensure that more farms are affected over time. And all this to gather an additional £500 million in taxes, which is virtually nothing in Treasury terms. The effect on family farms, however, would be disastrous, with no time to pass on their farm to their children and avoid tax under the 7-year rule. Tax avoidance is for some a tainted word, but the alternative is for farmers to sell their land, which may then fall into use for development or to be covered in massive solar farms. Either way, in an environment hostile to farmers, there is a high risk of agricultural land being taken out of production, leading to higher food prices at a time when many people struggle to feed their families. Piling greater taxes on those who work incredibly hard to produce our food is a foolish and ill-conceived idea. The government's offer to allow payment of IHT interest-free over 10 years does not solve the problem. It would mean them paying 2% per year on affected land, which would relate to about 1.8% overall, whilst the average profit brought in is around 1.5%. And as farmers will probably know, there may be no profit at all in some years. Madam Chair, whilst there are discussions going on presently between the industry and government, I support this motion in the hope that it will assist a solution to the problem created by a removal of agricultural property relief from farms worth over £1 million. And just a little postscript. We do have a history in this council, certainly on this side of the chamber, of railing against central government when we believe them to be wrong. We've done that even against our own government. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. May I invite Councillor Abbott, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I find myself on this motion sort of a little bit caught between the Conservatives and Labour, because I agree with some of the things that speakers from both sides have said. I certainly support the thrust of the motion in supporting our farming communities. It's clearly vital that we have a thriving farming community. But this is a national issue which this council can't do much about. And given the motions that have been brought to previous full councils, I wonder if this is the shape of things to come for the next few years, where the party opposite just bring a series of national motions for debate on issues that we can't do much about, instead of us talking about the real issues we want to talk about in this district, which I raise on a regular basis and get regularly ignored in terms of, for example, projects in our wards we would like to see advanced, instead of just seeing more and more development around Braintree and Great Notley. It's also, matter of fact, it's also interesting about the Conservatives' newfound sympathy for farmers and the rural environment. They didn't seem to show that when their New Towns agenda was on the go a few years ago, where they wanted to cover most of the land between Coggeshall and the fringes of Colchester in a vast urbanisation project. Not much sympathy there for our rural way of life. But coming back to what our farmers face, they don't just face this issue, which I agree is a real issue for them in terms of the viability of farms going forward, at least the smaller ones. But they also face huge development pressures on farmlands. Roads, pylons, quarries, urbanisation. The last time I looked, the purpose of farms was, and I agree with Councillor Schweier, the very great importance of biodiversity, but it was to grow food. But we seem to be expecting our farmland to do just about everything else. And I come back to the point I've made in previous meetings. We need a national, perhaps a regional would be better, land strategy, where we work out what we're going to do with our land, instead of constantly looking to it to do too many things. So whilst the inheritance tax issue is clearly a very important one regarding the viability of farming, there are many other pressures on our rural countryside and our farmers, including drivers such as the use of land, and not least climate change, which is an incredibly important issue. It is increasingly affecting many farmers. So I think this is a far more complex issue than this motion sets out, but I think from my perspective, the party opposite are being entirely inconsistent. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. May I invite Councillor Williams, please?
Madam Chairman, you do have to ask, don't you, what this government has against areas like ours. We have an older than average population, but it's vulnerable older people who are being hammered as a result of the withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance. Essex is the home of enterprise, the home of small businesses, but it's small businesses that are being absolutely hammered by the increase in national insurance. We have some excellent schools, some independent schools in this district, which we should all be very proud of, but it's parents sending their children to those schools who are being hammered with higher fees as a result of the imposition of VAT. And now we have this, the imposition of inheritance tax on family farms. And as has been noted already, it's important for those of us who represent urban wards to remember that this is a rural district, and this will impact on residents up and down this district. And it wouldn't be so bad if this was just simple class warfare, but it's more than that. It's crude class warfare without any consideration for the consequences whatsoever. Now, I'm happy to be corrected on this, but in Whittam Central, I think that we have 0 farms. I'm happy to be corrected, but my residents do have a soft spot for feeding themselves, and they also have a soft spot for feeding their families. And you know, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if you tax farmers to their hilt, they'll have to sell some land to pay that tax. If they do that, they'll produce less food, and as a result, they will undermine our food security just at the time when this world is becoming more and more dangerous. This is a consequence which I don't think is being considered at all. And of course, this isn't going to hit the big agro giants. They'll be okay. This is going to hit small family farmers, small family farmers that have protected the land, that have preserved the land, that have conserved the land for years and years, decades and decades, generations and generations. And indeed, they have done a huge amount towards combating climate change as well. We're going to throw all of that, I'm afraid, under the bus. And I really do think, as was alluded to earlier by Councillor Van Dolken, that this is the time to put party politics to one side. It's time to put this district before political parties. We need to vote for this amendment unanimously, send a message to this government that it can't treat our residents in the way that it has so far.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Finken.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I agree with Councillor Abbott that this is really a motion that shouldn't have been brought to this council. Braintree District Council really has no ability to influence government policy, and I think we should question the value of bringing this sort of motion to this council. Councillor Schwier, I usually agree with, especially on environmental and climate change issues, and I'm very sorry that I can't support his motion today. The reality is that the campaign against the extension of inheritance tax to agricultural land is being led by extremely wealthy individuals who have themselves exploited this tax loophole, and it is a tax loophole, despite what councillors opposite have said, to protect their own interests. 40% of land purchases last year were for investment purposes, and in 2024, only just over a quarter of land purchases have been made by farmers, the rest being bought by individual and corporate investors. There's a great deal of scaremongering going on, particularly when you consider the number of large estates in the whole country which are likely to be affected by this policy. Also, I think we should consider that the exemption of agricultural land from inheritance tax liability is relentlessly driving up the price of land, which causes problems for farmers and non-farmers alike. Like everyone else, farmers benefit from putting our national finances on a sustainable footing and investing in the public services, the NHS, the justice system, education and local authority services on which we all depend, and which have been devastated by the last 14 years of Conservative rule. This is only one of many measures which will allow our new Labour government to put extra resources into these vital services. There are ways in which the inheritance tax proposals could be improved to stop the avoidance of inheritance tax by wealthy investors, while protecting real working farmers and their families more effectively. But this motion doesn't address those issues, It instead proposes a complete reversal of the policy, and that's why I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Finkin. Councillor Spray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm one of the supporters of this motion. There is without doubt a financial impact to farms as a result of this change to inheritance tax introduced by the government. But I would like to just talk about another aspect of this, namely the care that farming families show to their land and their livestock, year-round dedication in all weathers. Now, we've just had a weekend of pretty awful weather, very high winds, torrential rain and flooding, and most of us probably sensibly chose to stay indoors in the warm and the dry. Well, farmers can't do that. They have to go out and they have to check on their livestock, check that fences are still standing, that barn roofs are still intact. And they do this because they care deeply about the way of life they've chosen, and in many cases the generations before them who passed that land on. I know that many were already facing very difficult financial issues and worrying about the sustainability of their farms even before the changes to the inheritance tax. Constantly worrying about money is debilitating. It's exhausting. And it sucks the joy out of anything else you do day to day. However much you love your job, whatever that job may be, constantly worrying about money is soul destroying. And now many farmers face the added very real stress of possibly having to sell their land or split their farms up and not being able to provide a secure future for the next generation because they won't be able to meet the inheritance tax bill. I think we're very lucky in this district to live here. It's largely rural. We're surrounded by lovely countryside, much of it agricultural and farming land. So this change will affect many Braintree residents. It isn't just about the bank balance, it's about the mental stress as well. It takes its toll. The suicide rate amongst the farming communities is 3 times higher than the national average. Now, I'm sure that's a very uncomfortable subject for many. It's not something people want to hear, but it's important that it's talked about. The very excellent BBC One Country File programme, which goes out every Sunday evening, has covered this topic more than once. I do realise that there are many groups and many people in this country struggling financially and finding things very tough. But this is one group of people, the farmers, who the government could and should be supporting. Rather than piling on the pressure, Chairman, which is what they're doing, before Labour won the July election and before he became Prime Minister, and my colleague Councillor Van Dalken alluded to this, Keir Starmer said how much he valued the rural economy and how much he wanted to support the farming community in particular. Well, I think that's a promise broken. And with it, many farming families will be broken too. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. May I invite Councillor Staines, please?
Madam Chairman, I wonder if the district's residents want blatant national politics brought to this chamber, or would prefer that we all focus on local matters. I support Braintree District farmers, family and tenants. I also support Braintree District businesses, so suggest any letter from here to government includes the rise to employers' national insurance, which jeopardises staff retention and curbs hiring by employers and would-be employers across the UK. I also suggest that every opportunity BDC sends to every BDT letter to the government highlights the continuing rampant government spending at the unsuitable Wethersfield site to accommodate asylum seekers there. The revenue cost of this policy has now exceeded £50 million and is much more expensive than hotels. The last point is important because only asylum policy delivered at Wethersfield disproportionately affects Braintree District. On the real and virtual doorsteps, it's clear that residents want this chamber to work hard and only on the local things within its remit and will not thank members undertaking national party manoeuvres
Councillor
which could
Staines.
divert us from our elected focus and
Councillor
extensive demands
Staines,
of
may
the
I
Braintree
interrupt you, sir,
district.
please?
Yes, you may.
I must advise you that your speech is out of scope of the matters that we're debating at the present. Please can I remind you to ensure your speech is strictly relating to the matters of the debate only. Thank you. Please continue.
Madam Chairman, I therefore suggest that a constitutional amendment is developed to stop such national debates here in future, so we can focus on the local work in hand, unless, of course, Braintree District Council are an interested or invited party to a consultation where member and officer voices can clearly help inform national decision making, like the BDC input into national waste collection and management and the national policy reforms. Or a national policy seems to unfairly single out the Braintree District, like asylum prison accommodation and likely pylons. Or that there is a new and unique S151 impact specific to the district that results from a national policy. Madam Chairman,
Councillor Staines, I must advise you again, please, sir. You're off key here. Please get to the point.
Yeah. So, Madam Chair, I look forward to working with members of all stripes and the monitoring officer to progressively amend the BDC constitution to expressly exclude national politics at the next available opportunity, which only comes but once a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Staines. Councillor Ricky, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not quite sure how I follow that, but I will just mention a couple of things. This council has a fine history of bringing motions to this council, irrespective of what we want to speak to them on. And if there's an address at the end of that motion that requests that we write to the relevant government committee to voice our concerns as a local council, we have done so, and on both sides. So it's absolutely right that we address the national issue at our local level. And I think if we don't do that, then we're fundamentally missing a point here. As my colleague mentioned, NFU, CLA and DEFRA have both mentioned that there's a severe mismatch between the number of farms that Labour claim to be affected by this inheritance tax. And in fact, it's a real shame that the leader of the Independent and Green Group isn't here today, because I'm sure there'd be some odds around what the deputy leader has said.
Exactly,
so maybe with your indulgence, I'll make a second guess what she may have said, Madam Chairman, if that's okay. Rural businesses and rural communities are the backbone of our community. They always have been, as a rural district that we are. And by imposing this tax on those, we will fracture those rural communities to the point where they splinter and splinter and splinter. And then we will have no choice but to accept farming that has disappeared, farmland that is then sold for the wrong reasons, and the very backbone of what our agricultural industry here in the Braintree district is used for. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ricky. Councillor Abbott.
May I raise a point of personal explanation, because Councillor Ricky effectively just put words into the mouths of the leader of the group and implied that I did not support farming communities and rural communities. It's one of the first things I said, that I support them. So I don't know why he's making that comment when I quite clearly set out what my position is.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott, for your personal explanation. Thank you. Councillor Jeffries, may I ask you to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I actually represent one of the town wards, a non-parished area of Booking North with Councillor Bull. But I would say that 50% of the area is rural. So it's quite an unusual ward, really. One of the areas of land that you will know, agricultural land, which is actually farmed by somebody from Patterswick, is as you go out of Braintree, up Broad Road, on the left-hand side, you look across and see the windmill, a lovely piece of agricultural land. There's nothing on it at the moment, of course. It's been put forward for the call of sites to be looked at by the local plan committee. And it turns out it's actually owned by Trinity College, Cambridge. So there is a bit of a difference between what's farmers and what's landowners. And I think we just have to be careful about who it is actually getting our support. But I will be voting against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. May I invite Councillor Taylor, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Councillor Toby Williams actually hit the nail on the head when he talks about the politics of envy, and this is the politics of envy. A former advisor to Tony Blair said, and it was quoted in the Daily Telegraph, that we will do to farmers what Thatcher did to miners. I think that says everything you need to know about what the Labour Party is trying to achieve with these reforms to the farming industry. So you have to ask the question, what do socialists have against farmers? And like we say, it is the politics of envy. And if we see where the inspiration, perhaps this has come from, is we only have to look at the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, who removed a portrait of Nigel Lawson from her office and displayed a picture of Ellen Wilkinson, who was a founding member of the Communist Party, as reported by the Guardian newspaper. So perhaps her inspiration is a modern-day attack on landowners and farmers, as communist and socialist regimes did in history, and we don't need to go into the specific details of that. So we've got a Labour government that is absolutely attacking our farming sector, and in their own words, in their own deeds and their own actions and proposals, we can see it for ourselves. The comments and questions, I think, about the local nature of this and what we can do, I think we can do. I think this council does have a role to play in supporting farmers. Councillor Abbott's right. I think a land strategy, whether that's a local or regional or national one, should be investigated. I think it's a very good idea. It's been mentioned before from Green members that Britain's one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world, which is a shocking fact. So we could be supporting our farmers, whether it's through planning policy or whatever, to support more biodiversity net gains on our farms. That in turn deals with climate change, because we know that farms across the east of England have seen a decline in potato yields, the crops and the yields, and we can be supporting farmers through the work that they do to diversify their wider land holdings, whether that's renewable energy projects or leisure, retail or whatever. So there is a role for the local planning authority and for this council to play in supporting farmers. So yes, I think Councillor Williams was absolutely right, and I think the points raised by members on this side, I'm very proud to be supporting the motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's very difficult to add much more to what has been a spirited debate so far. But I would just like to challenge a couple of points, if I may. First of all, this idea that because it relates to national policy, somehow it's not relevant to this council. Madam Chairman, when policy is relevant to the residents of this district, of which this district council has served for 50 years, then it is absolutely relevant to this district council. And frankly, it's a rather myopic and slightly short-sighted view to hold that somehow we shouldn't be debating issues of national relevance when they impact so greatly to local residents. And I do have Councillor Abbott, with great respect to him, he does talk about consistency. On one hand, he criticises and brings up the same 5-year-old recitation, rather longer than that, 6-7-year recitation on garden communities. That was about a long-term plan for 50-odd years to protect rural communities from speculative development. So on one hand, you know, absolute. Oh, really? Okay, right. Okay. Well, we do look forward in these upcoming discussions to the Green and Independent coherent alternative plan for strategic planning in North Essex. I think we'll have a long wait, and I have a feeling it might be one community against another, because that's kind of their modus operandi, isn't it? But what I would say to colleagues on the Labour Party, and I appreciate they have to defend their government position, even at times when they do find it unpalatable, they, frankly, for many years, know their district better than perhaps they may be letting on today. And they know the impact of policy on rural communities. They know the importance of the rural economy to the district of Braintree. And they know that thousands of people have either live in rural communities or directly dependent upon income from rural communities. And I think it's a challenge to the Labour Party, to the Labour government. This Labour government being very different from that Labour government that was there between 1997 and 2010, because Tony Blair and Gordon Brown would never play these games. They know that when you're elected with a big majority, you have a responsibility to the whole country, all four parts of it, not the urbanised areas where Labour seats are highly concentrated. So therefore, it's very much a regression from the one nation approach of previous Labour governments. But I think it's important we stand strong and show our solidarity with the rural communities. This isn't about an elitist landowning minority. This impacts thousands and millions across the country, and it's right that we raise and champion the cause this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Parker, having reserved the right to speak, do you wish to do so now?
Yes, please, Madam Chairman. Thank you to everybody who's contributed to this debate, and I just would like to echo what Councillor Cunningham has said. The reason why I'm seconding this motion is because this is a policy which is brought forward by the government, which is going to severely affect many people in our district, and I only think it's right that we, as members representing them, speak out when we feel that something has been done wrongly. As we heard, the budget, the Chancellor has withdrawn not only agricultural property relief, but also business property relief, and inheritance tax, which wasn't previously charged, will now be charged at 20% on all farm assets over £1 million. I'd just like to remind everybody, a tractor is £250,000. A shed, a grain store, is probably something of the same. So that threshold is extremely low. And I just would like to pick up the point that I know members opposite have raised the point about institutional investors buying farmland. That is correct. But a threshold of £1 million is going to catch many, many more people than just institutional investors, which is why it is mentioned in the motion. Many members here have talked about the complete disparity between the Treasury figures and DEFRA figures, the CLA figures. Also will add to that the very independent body, the Independent Central Association of Agricultural Valuers, who calculate 75,000 farms in this country will fall above that threshold, and that 2,500 farms a year will be affected by this change. Members, farming is an asset-rich business, but a cash-poor business. Many farms simply do not make enough profit to pay the inheritance tax, even if they're able to pay it over 10 years. The only way they're going to be able to pay this tax, and it's a tax that's been imposed upon them, is to sell their business assets, whether that is the land that they farm on or the machinery that they farm with. It is going to be making it more difficult to make their business work and more difficult to sustain the viability of their business. It's obviously affecting family farms. Many of these farms have been in the same family for generations. The farm where I live, near where I live, I don't own this farm at all, but it has been in the same family since 1850. And the current farmer is a fifth-generation farmer. He tells me that family farmers have a unique relationship to the land. They love their farms. They love the countryside. They are proud to produce the food that we eat, and the food in this country is produced in some of the highest standards in the world. They are central to the rural communities where they live. I don't know if any of you have found that the roads that you were intending to travel on this weekend were impassable because of trees have fallen down. I drove along one today. The tree had been cleared. It would have been cleared by the local farmer with his chainsaw. Those are the sort of people that they support their communities. They know that they often earn less than the minimum wage, but they carry on with the job that they love so that the children can take over their farm in the future, just as they did from their parents. This policy will destroy family farming in this country. The government has failed to carry out an impact assessment on this policy before bringing it, as other members have mentioned. And they also promised, I think the farming minister promised the farmers, the shadow farmers, as was at the time, promised to the farming community that they would not remove agricultural property relief. That is a broken promise. I'd just like to pick up some of the other points that members have made. And the party opposite, they are supporting or claiming support for this policy on the grounds that you need to support government finances. You do not support government finances by destroying businesses. It's quite clear. I also just like to mention Councillor Spray mentioned the mental health impact and the difficulty that many farmers face. It's a difficult industry to work in. This policy is particularly cruel because it is going to come into effect in April 2026. There are conversations going on now with elderly farmers who are saying to their children, I don't know, would it be better if I die before April 26? This is exactly what is going on. The other thing I think we must be aware of that it is really important that for the future of agriculture in this country, we encourage young people to go into agriculture. This policy has completely the opposite effect. So this is why I shall be seconding the motion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Schwer, you may reply to the speeches. Please, may I remind you that you should confine your reply to the speeches heard this evening and should not introduce any new matters.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, everybody, for the discussion. Councillor Valdelkin mentioned about losing a farm. If you lose it and it's going to go, I think that's actually quite right. What we're talking about here with Councillor Martin mentioned about the multi-millions and with the fit for the foundation. Well, there's nothing more fit for the foundation of this country and in this district and in this area than farming and producing food. We eat it all of the time, every day. And of course, not only that, it's vital to our local jobs as well, with our local communities. And I think Councillor Ball summed it up quite very well with giving us some of the details on the tax systems as well. And then what was interesting was Councillor Finnegan was mentioning about no value and the exemption and driving up land. Well, land prices are going up. And it is the difference that we have here, which is why I wanted to bring this motion tonight, to highlight the concern that we have about our family farms in this district. Not only this district, but nationally as well. But this debate tonight is about our local family farms across the whole district and across Essex as well. It is vital. They're all interlinked. And Councillor Spey, I think, made a very good point also about actually the emotional state of a lot of our farmers now. They are really concerned. And as Councillor Parker mentioned, and it's a phrase that has been used, I think, quite a lot in media about farmers being asset rich and cash poor, and I have heard that. And of course, farmers don't have a predictable income. They respond to the climate. They respond to the environment. They work their land. They know it better than anybody else. And the idea that we cannot here tonight speak about local farming and the idea that it's a national debate and that we can't talk about it as elected representatives, that is exactly what we need to be in this chamber to do, to talk about local issues. What is more local than the local farmers in our rural parts that employ local people, that keep local communities going, that they also participate in all of our communities. They're involved in parish councils, they attend the sports events, they support schools, you name it, they do it. They're just like us, but they also grow food and also look after their livestock like nothing else. We have heard from many people tonight the quality of our food, and I think we probably would all agree without exception tonight the importance of quality food that we have in this country. It is second to none. And of course, Councillor Staines mentions again about the national matter, but he did go off on to other things. But I want to bring this conversation back to the importance of the motion, and this motion is to ask the leader actually to write and see if we can reverse that budget, because for all of the reasons that has been discussed here tonight, and especially on this side supporting the motion, and it has been to some extent overall, and I'm glad to see that everybody agrees the importance of food and agriculture, and also the fact that they are local farmers. And as Councillor Parker mentioned about the age, I know many examples of families who've lasted generations in this area, who continue to invest in their land, who continue to help into their local communities. So it's really important that they don't disappear. I'm sure we wouldn't want to see national corporations or huge organisations just taking over that land. And we also need the young to come up and support farming, because you walk onto most farms today, you will see the average age of the farmer, and I think the NFU has got statistics on this, that they're pushing up to probably the average age of the upper echelon that we have in here tonight. There are not so many people wanting to move into agriculture, and we need to keep all of that investment going, but also that local knowledge as well. It's huge. And I think overall it's been a good debate, but I think again, you know, let's debate this. This is a good motion just to ask and keep agriculture, local farmers in their place, helping and investing in our communities, in our district at Braintree. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schwer.
Madam Chairman, could I request a named vote on this?
Do I have one more member? Thank you. Members, if you just bear with me so I can update the list in accordance with the apologies, so we don't call anyone who's not here. Just give me 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will go to the named vote. If you could call for or against when I read your name. Councillor Abbott. Councillor Alt. Councillor Bohr.
For.
Councillor Bond. For. Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Bowers-Flint.
For.
Councillor Butland.
For.
Councillor Courtauld.
For.
Councillor M. Cunningham.
For.
Councillor T. Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Diamond.
Against.
Councillor Edwards.
For.
Councillor Finkin.
Against.
Councillor Garrard.
For.
Councillor Green.
Against.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Hooks. Councillor Jeffries.
Against.
Councillor Martin.
Against.
Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Monday.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Pell.
For.
Councillor Prime.
For.
Councillor Rajiv.
For.
Councillor Ramage.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Schweer.
For.
Councillor Spray. Councillor Staines.
Support.
Councillor B. Taylor.
For.
Councillor W. Taylor. Councillor M. Thorogood. Councillor Van Delken.
For.
Councillor Walters.
Yes. For.
Councillor E. Williams.
For.
Councillor T. Williams.
For.
Councillor Wrench.
For.
Councillor Wright.
No vote.
Sorry?
No vote.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
No, it's not unanimous. The motion has been approved. Yep.
Thank you, members. Thank you, members. The motion has been moved.
Has been
Approved. Thank you, members. We will now deal with agenda item 8, questions to the Leader of the Cabinet. And yes, the Leader in the Cabinet. Thank you. Members, during this item, you may only ask one question of the Leader and the Cabinet on matters to which it relates to their functions, the powers and duties of this Council and matters pertaining to the district. Questions must be succinct and cannot be asked in parts or in supplementary questions are not permitted. I will allow some explanation if it is necessary, but I will certainly, any long leading statements I will not allow. Thank you. We have 30 minutes for this item. As the Leader of the Opposition has given her apologies this evening, the order of the questions will be at my discretion. Please can all members wishing to ask questions this evening now indicate so that we can make a list, and please keep your hand raised until you've been acknowledged. May I invite Councillor Jeffreys to speak?
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, it's a question for Councillor Marie Cunningham, really. So we were lucky enough with Councillor Baz Flint to recently represent the council, given out some grants to local organisations. While we were doing that, there were quite a few organisations that maybe didn't fit the criteria or very worthy causes. And I just wondered whether we do all have our own grant money that we can distribute. And I just wondered if there's any way that she is able to contact members and just let them know how much they've got left in their pots, that they might be able to distribute, especially at this time or season or goodwill. And of course, the year's getting on and we don't want to run out of any money, so, or not run out of it, not give out some of the money. So I just wondered if there's any way we can encourage our members on both sides to spend their money, for good causes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. Councillor Mrs Cunningham, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your question, Councillor Jeffreys. I feel a bit like a greyhound coming out of the trap. I think you've been reading my mind, because in the last week or so, I've been having those very discussions because we're coming up to the third quarter only, yes, the end of December will be the end of the third quarter. And obviously the grant runs out at the end of March. We're just having our final discussion, but I think within the next week we'll be writing to all councillors. So I think, as you've suggested, it'd be a good idea for them to have their balance so they know. With regard to some of the organisations that weren't successful, I think you're talking about the Braintree and Eastlight community funding, aren't you? Yeah, there were some organisations there that didn't fit quite that criteria, but will for our council community grants. I've been having some discussions with the community team on money that hasn't been spent possibly by the end of the year to actually look at some of those grants so that we can actually fulfil as many applications in the district as we can. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mrs Cunningham. May I invite Councillor Abbott? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In thanking the Leader of the Council for his updates on devolution and local government reform, those two things are not necessarily mutually conducive. And I think we've had a lot of briefings and a lot of news stories about what might be coming and what the real agenda is here. So what is his take on what the actual agenda is? Because it can't be both. And if it's going to be local government reform, subject obviously to what the government does, have Essex leaders already discussed what model that reform would take in terms of unitaries in Essex?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not privy to the white paper which will come out next week. There is a strong suggestion that the government actually are going to link all three, devolution, mayors and local government reform, as one package. Now, whether that will be the case or not, we won't know until the white paper is published. And for that reason, as chairman of the Essex Leaders and Chief Execs group, I have postponed meetings of that group until we have the white paper coming before us. So no decision have been taken. But of course, one does have to remember, through you, Madam Chairman, that the decision makers, as far as Essex are concerned, will be the three upper tier authorities, which is the County Council and the two unitaries. But as of this moment, I, like him, wait with anticipation as to what will be in the white paper.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. May I invite Councillor Ramage, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As members may be aware, there has been many complaints about Eastlight. And to this, I gather the Cabinet member has held a meeting with the Chief Executive recently. Could she say how that went and what was discussed and the outcomes of that meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ramage. Councillor Bowers-Flint.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I did anticipate getting this question this evening. Members, both myself and the Head of Housing and Community Services met with the Chief Executive of Eastlight Community Homes, Emma Palmer, along with their Director of Housing, Andrew Hull, on the 28th of November. At this meeting, some of the queries I raised with them included grounds maintenance issues and general tenant management, including issues of antisocial behaviour and BDC councillors receiving high volumes of complaints from Eastlight residents. With regard to the grounds maintenance, Eastlight officers confirmed that there was an issue with the contract during the growing season residents have not been charged for that period of time, and a new contract and provider is now in place, so you should all see an improvement. Obviously you won't this time of year, but come the spring you definitely should see a difference. With regards to both tenant behaviour and tenant complaints, Eastlight officers confirm that there is a team that deals with complaints, and this email can be shared widely with members, and as portfolio I can escalate these with a member of the senior leadership team when I see necessary. I also confirm that would make things easier if councillors had a point of contact for the areas where they can go direct to that person. It was agreed that this can be done and this will be actioned. But until such a time, please do feed issues into the complaints team. Officers from BDC will be sharing these details shortly with you, following on from our meeting held on the 8th and the 28th. And it was agreed that our Head of Service for Housing and Community would meet regularly with the Director, Andrew Hull, and the operational meetings would be reinstated with different service areas across the council to be able to raise concerns and work better together. Finally, it was suggested by them that a further meeting take place in 6 months for both Eastlake, with Braintree Council to continue to raise any further feedback and work together better. Members, I think it's fair to say that it was acknowledged. It was a good meeting. Let me say that for a start of. It was much better than I probably anticipated it would be. And they did put their hands up and admit that there had been mistakes and they had problems. They're trying to address them. They also shared with us the problems that housing associations are facing right at this moment in time. So I think going forward that we will share with you the email address for complaints so that that can be done immediately. And if you're not happy with that, then please escalate it to me and then I will take it up on your behalf. And I hope that puts some of your minds at rest. It certainly did mine. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Barsfriend. May I invite Councillor Finken, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's really rather similar to Councillor Abbott's question about devolution and the permanent shift in power from central government to local communities and the efficiency which is supposed to be achieved through that change. And I think a lot of people are rather concerned about the democratic aspects of the changes and the accountability, particularly of the mayoral authority. And that instead of it being closer to local communities, that the feeling of local people, local residents may be that it's more remote and that they're having taken power away from them and they feel they have less influence on local affairs than they do at the moment. So I understand that you haven't got the authority to say what is going to happen, but in any discussions that you have with other council leaders, I hope that you will give due weight to those democratic aspects of the changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Finkin raises a very important point. I think what I would say is clearly it depends what is devolved and there will need to be a balance. I think the people of Greater Manchester, for example, would think that the mayor there has now got much more power to determine things like transport, etc., in a local way better than Whitehall. So until we get that white paper and what is on the table, which of course will have to be subject to public consultation throughout Essex, it is difficult to tell. But I take his point fully. We do need to weigh both sides of the argument regarding the democratic accountability and what price we are prepared, some may say, for dilution to some extent maybe, although of course the mayor would be directly elected by all people in Essex. So we wait and see. I can't add to that anymore, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. A question to Councillor Spray. Councillor Spray, in response to your recent question from Councillor Bob Wright, you refer to a planning enforcement case costing the district's taxpayers an eye-wateringly high £60,000 in legal costs alone and taking up 3 years of officer's time to conclude. Am I right in understanding that the cost of officer time is in addition to the said £60,000? And given that the huge cost to council taxpayers, will the Cabinet member inform members tonight the name of the site and the developer, and to see if we'll be opposing those types of applications again in the future?
Councillor Taylor. May I invite Councillor Green? I beg your pardon, Councillor Spray.
Thank you.
Beg your pardon.
Cut me off in my prime, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman, and thank Councillor Taylor for his question, which I'll answer to the best of my ability. Firstly, I can confirm that officer costs were not included in that £60,000 which I mentioned in my written response to Councillor Wright's question. So officer costs were in addition to that. As regards the site itself, this was not enforcement action taken against a developer. It was against a business which was trading without planning consent in the Coggeshall area, let me say that. And I would only add, Chairman, that I think it is regrettable that the individual concerned, whilst when the planning breach first started, that person was not a member of the District Council, but was subsequently elected to the District Council at the time that enforcement action was going on. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray. May I invite Councillor Green to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Dog poo. I'd like to talk about dog poo. Me and my cockapoo have started finding it very frustrating when we've gone to a red bin to put his poo in it, and it's been full up and sometimes overflowing. I'm not sure what cabinet member is responsible for it, but I'm wondering if there's been a change in how often these are emptied. We obviously don't want people to start putting bags of poo in the normal litter bin. So I wondered if the cabinet member could fetch me the information and return it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I believe that might be Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much indeed, and I thank Councillor Green for his question. Yes, there have been some issues raised with our dog bins in the Bridge District. If he's able just to perhaps let me know exactly which one he's referring to, we'll look into that. We are undertaking a review of our dog bins right across the district to ensure we can offer a better service, because we all rely on responsible dog owners, such as Councillor Green, to behave responsibly with their dog's mess. And obviously bins that are full and not unable to get your mess in are not suitable for that. So we'll make we'll operationally look at the bin he refers to, but I can tell you that we'll be improving the service in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. May I invite Councillor Mason to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Council, I wish to draw your attention to the fact that tomorrow, the 10th of December, is the final day of the UN 16 Days of Action Against Gender-Based Violence, which started on the 25th of November, which was the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. During this time, various charities and organisations have been involved in raising awareness, including Next Chapter, the domestic abuse refuge based in Colchester that takes referrals from this area. According to a piece about them in the Gazette, referrals have exploded from pre-pandemic numbers, between 140 to 150 a month, to last month's count of 468 referrals, an increase of over a third. I know that this council is actively promoting initiatives such as J9 and is good at signposting to other organisations. However, this doesn't address the lack of resource in this area. And my question is specifically addressed to the Cabinet Member for Housing, Health and Wellbeing. Given the 30% growth in referrals to Colchester Refuge, combined with the population increase and housing expansion in this district, when is a refuge going to be based or commissioned in the Braintree district? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Bowes-Flint, would you like to respond?
Madam Chairman, unfortunately in the district this comes under Councillor Mary Cunningham.
Speak.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your question, Councillor Mason. Yes, the district has been promoting the 16 days of action against women, the violence against women and girls. It's a priority of our community safety partnership. It's a priority of the PFCC. It's top of their list of priorities to tackle that. Your question about a refuge, that is actually something I'm not actually 100% clear on, so I'm going to actually take that away and get a written response for you, if that's okay. Thanks. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. May I invite Councillor Diamond to speak up, sir?
Thank you. Many people in the district feel very strongly about their local sports team. With Braintree Town FC being promoted to the National League earlier this year, I think we can agree we have a lot to be proud of here. This is something that many of our residents feel strongly about. There is some concern amongst residents, however, that there is more that we can do to support our local teams. What can the council do, and what are the council doing, to promote not just amateur, but professional sport within the district? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Diamond. Councillor Mary, Mrs Cunningham, would you like to speak?
Thank you, and thank you for your question, Councillor Diamond. Braintree District Council has worked, or does work, with Braintree Town Football Club with local and other local community and sports groups to deliver health and wellbeing events. That was something that we delivered at Braintree Town Football Club. We work with lots of organisations to promote sport right through the district, with Active Essex as well. One of the things that we actually delivered at Braintree Town Football Club last year was the Fellas event, which was very well received. And then obviously if there's funding available that Braintree Town Football Club fits the criteria, then we will obviously support them with that. But Active Essex are very prominent throughout the district in supporting sports groups. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Cunningham. May I invite Councillor Williams, T. Williams, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In light of the recent national budget, can the relevant Cabinet member please provide an update on the impact of the national insurance increase on this council?
Oh, thank you, Councillor Williams. May I invite Councillor Bowers, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, the local government finance policy paper was released on the 28th of November this year, and there has still been commitment to provide support for additional employer national insurance contribution costs for those directly employed. But at the moment, the further information that we are waiting for with the detail, we are expected to be provided with the provisional local government finance settlement, which is expected later this month. But just to confirm, as I said before, the cost increase to the medium-term financial strategy for the increase is circa £500,000. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. May I invite Councillor Thorogood, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The slip roads off the A120 that we spoke about years ago, are they going to actually be put in place? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorogood. Councillor Bowers, can you respond to that?
Well, I think I'll answer, Madam Chairman. I do not know is the answer. As you know, we've had various iterations by various governments. Clearly, it is one of the issues that we will want to draw to the attention of this government. And this government is very keen on linking infrastructure to housing. So there may be an argument that we would wish to put forward to say that in return for a certain degree of housing, we would like to see significant improvement to our road network. But that will be something which we will need to consider when we're doing our local plan, but also in the light of further government announcements. But I think it was made quite clear of the way this government is going by the interview that the Deputy Prime Minister made only this weekend. You can't have one without the other, but then I've been saying that in this chamber for at least 10 years.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. May I invite Councillor Taylor, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This year, Hedingham Castle has been put on the English Heritage at Risk Register. The reason being some of the rough racking to its walls is in poor condition, resulting in water leakage, which is causing dampness internally. Hedingham Castle is a Grade 1 castle keep and is one of the most famous castles in East Anglia. It is a vital part of our heritage and is so important for tourism in our district as well as use within the Hedingham community. The owners are in discussion with Historic England regarding possible funding options. My question, is there anything more we as a council should be or could be doing to protect our local heritage?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. May I invite Councillor Rickey?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your question. Of course, Hedingham Castle is a real jewel in that crown, and again, a thriving or a rural business, which kind of underpins some of the discussion we had earlier on this evening. Of course, we will look into anything that we can do as a council to support any private businesses, particularly that type of heritage and that type of nature, not underestimating the what it brings to the district, not just from an educational perspective, but also from the fact that it's a real historical item and it needs to be preserved for the years to come. Anything that we can do in working with either the central government with regards to rural prosperity funding, or anything that we can do with regards to funding that's available from a district council perspective, we're always happy to have discussions with the owners, and if that does give rise to anything that we can do, I will of course not just let yourself know, but let the rest of the chamber know as well. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Councillor Rickey. Councillor Edward, would you like to speak, sir?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. A sense of pride in place is a key priority for residents in Bocking South and indeed across the district. Could the Cabinet Member update us on the Council's ambitious tree planting programme, as well as any support he is giving to community gardens across the district, including what steps he is taking to make sure these projects provide value for money for the council taxpayer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Through you, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much. I think it's absolutely right. Residents do have an enormous pride in place, and they want to see all their councils working to support their shared objectives in that space. We have, he quite rightly says, we have an excellent record of tree planting, either through ourselves or working with others. And ECC's Essex Forest Initiative have planted 33,844 trees in Braintree District last winter across 15 sites. We at BDC have plans for further tree planting around the Witham Sports Ground and adjacent to Liddell in Witham. And he rightly mentions our support of community gardens, where we have, I think, rather usefully ensured that UK shared prosperity funding from the Levelling Up, the last government's Levelling Up programme, went into communities and community gardens and across the whole district. First year was 22-23, and some beneficiaries have been Bures Parish Council, Castle Hedingham Parish Council, Steeple Bumpstead Parish Council, Bures Transition Group, Castle Hedingham Parish Council again in year 2, Coggeshall Parish Council, Cornish Hall End, part of Finchingfield Parish Council, White Cone Parish Council, Great Sailing Parish Council. This year, Ashton Memorial Village Hall, Braintree District Museum Trust, Stystead Village Hall, Friends of Cressing Temple, White Cone Parish Council, Fusion Leisure through the Witham Leisure Centre, Gosfield Community Shop, Great Bardfield Parish Council, Great Maplestead Parish Council, the Salvation Army in Braintree, Silver End Community Secret Nature Garden, Steeple Bumpstead Parish Council, Trust Links, Earls Cone Heritage Museum, Turling Cricket Club, Backnotley Parish Council and Braintree Mencap. So I think we've now demonstrated that we've been able to support right across the whole district. There's been some phenomenal projects that this funding has levered in, Madam Chairman, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to I'll perhaps share that in writing to all members of the Council. But he's absolutely right to the point about value. We have a high ambition to do things that help improve the pride in place, keep the place looking tidy, help fellow residents with their shared ambition. Obviously, we have to balance that against other demands on the public purse. But as you'll see in the budget, we'll continue to prioritise pride in place priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Thank you, members. This concludes the item. Any questions requiring a written response will be answered within 10 working days of this meeting and shared with all members. We will now proceed to agenda item 8. Agenda item 9, I apologise, the Treasury Management Mid-Year Report for 2024-25. Members, this report starts on page 7 of the agenda. Please can I invite Councillor Bowers to move the recommendation. Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. May I have a seconder, please?
Second, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Tom Cunningham. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak?
Reserve right, please, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bowers, please may I invite you to speak on this matter?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The report before you tonight sets out the mid-year position of the Council's finances and was previously presented to the Governance and Audit Committee in October this year, giving members of that committee the opportunity to review before coming to full Council tonight. The Treasury Management Strategy for 2024-25 was approved by full Council in February this year. The report is broken down to various sections which highlights the main areas of the Council's finances. Regarding the external context, inflation as measured by CPI has dropped from 3.2% in March to 2.2% in August, close to the 2% target set by the Bank of England, which obviously is positive. However, there are some underlying inflationary pressures, including wage growth across the public and private sector. With the reduction in inflation, we've also seen the Bank of England reduce base rate from 5.25% down to 5%. However, with the uncertainties over the global economic outlook, it is uncertain how quickly further reductions will take place. The rate has not reduced as much as it was expected to back when we set the strategy back in November-December time last year. The report provides detail of the Treasury management activity over the 24-25 financial year up to the end of August, and it focused primarily on investments, which is the main area of Council activity. With our investments, the primary objective is security and liquidity, although our current investments are achieving an average return of 4.91%. Regarding our investments, I have been asked previously where Section 106 monies sit, and although I have mentioned that Section 106 monies are not part of the numbers reported relating to the money we invest, I thought it might be helpful for Council if I provide a bit more detail of where they actually do sit. In line with the SIPFA Prudential Code and Treasury Management Code, the Council's cash balances from whatever source are managed on a holistic basis rather than segregated. This approach is one all councils will take given the legislative basis for adhering to the relevant codes of practice in this area. Investment activity, however, is approached to recognise the varying different risk profile that we should be applying to funds under management. So, for example, we would take a very different approach as to how we manage cash as a result of Section 106 balances, which are essentially restricted funds. We would not invest restricted funds such as those held for Section 106 in pooled fund investments due to their inherent volatility. While cash is amalgamated for the purposes of Treasury management, it is worth highlighting that it is the Council's general fund, i.e. the usable reserves, that carries all the risk of counterparty or other potential losses on investments, along with the cost and resources involved in managing those funds, which cannot be charged to or recovered from Section 106 funds. The recommendations set out in the report tonight will help the Council to demonstrate that it is achieving its corporate objectives of being a high-performing organisation that delivers excellent and value-for-money services and is delivering better outcomes for residents and businesses and reducing costs to taxpayers. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Do any members wish to speak on this item? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Please keep your hand raised until you have been acknowledged. Thank you. Councillor Staines, would you like to speak on this item? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How is the interest on the £2.1 million from the Home Office grant for housing asylum seekers at Wethersfield calculated, and who gets the benefits, please? I think interest earned on the £2.1 million principal is likely to exceed £7,500 a month if we assume a 4% return rather than the 5.18 in the report, or the 4.9 which Councillor Bowers has just referred to. Thank you.
Councillor Staines, as part of your speech on this item, it's noted that you've asked a question. I must remind you that there is no automatic right to a response to questions raised during the debate on any of the items of this meeting, before this meeting. It is a matter of the proposer and seconder as to whether they wish to respond as part of their right to reply at the conclusion of the debate. Councillor Staines, I will accept the next councillor, please. Councillor Abbott. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I hope Cabinet members will answer questions. I mean, they can bring forward debates on national tax policy. I think they can ask local...
Point of order, Madam Chairman. Can I just say, I don't think... Point of order? Just in terms of relevance in the debating format, that has been the prescribed debating format of this authority. I've been here 13 years. Councillor Abbott, we know, has been there a lot longer. There was a point of clarification by the monitoring officer, and frankly, I think these persistent attacks by the opposition on the senior professionals of this authority when they're doing their job is very unseemly. Thank you.
What attack on senior professionals? What attack on senior professionals? I don't know what you're talking about. Returning to the item I'm going to speak to, and thank you, Councillor Bowers, for the information about Section 106, because that's exactly what I was going to ask about. For us as councillors and our residents, is there a place, if it's not here in the Treasury Management Report, where we can see just how much in total the council does hold in Section 106? There was a report recently about the County Council's amount of money it holds and how it relates in national comparison with other authorities, and it's a very large sum of money indeed. I'd imagine this council holds millions of pounds in Section 106. Where can we find that information, and is there a figure for how much interest that Section 106 in total is accruing? Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham, as seconder, please can I invite you to speak now?
Madam Chairman, nothing else to add at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Bowers, as proposer, would you like to reply to the speeches before I put the recommendation to the vote? Please do not introduce any new matters.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And yes, thank you, Councillor Abbott, for your comments and the question. And like I say, I think you did appreciate the information on the Section 106 in regards, because obviously you was asking about that before. I think in regards balances and the detailed question that you're asking tonight, I think the best thing I can do is liaise with Councillor Spray and senior officers in regards that information and how best, I don't know in regards to the interest, I can't give you that information tonight, but how best we can convey that to members of the authority and have a think about how the best we can get that information out. But it has been noted, and we'll take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Thank you, members. The recommendation as set out on page 7 of the agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the recommendation, please indicate. Thank you, members. That vote is unanimous. We will now deal with agenda item 10, local council tax support scheme for 2025-2026. Members, this report starts on page 14 of the agenda. Please can I invite Councillor Bowers to move the recommendation.
I'd like to move the recommendation, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Please can we have a seconder?
Seconded, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Do you wish to reserve your right to speak, sir?
Reserve rights, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thank you to Councillor Bowers. Please may I invite you to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As members will be aware, a new banded local council tax support scheme for working age claimants was introduced in April 2024 alongside the statutory pension age scheme. The new scheme provides a greater level of support to low-income households, up to 77%, whilst also a simplified and user-friendly claim process which is more efficient to administer and supports council tax collection. No changes are being proposed to the scheme for 25-26. Alongside the new working age local council tax support scheme, transitional protection was put in place to provide support to existing claimants. Less technical issues with the online form, as the new form is extremely efficient. The removal of the non-dependent deduction has been well received by customers and reduced administrative issues when attempting to obtain evidence on non-dependent's income. Greater officer resource for reviewing the new claims on a rolling monthly basis to ensure support is awarded accurately. Reduced daily printing and postage by at least 500 items per week. There has been a 46% reduction, that's over 9,000 changes to claims requiring processing in the period April to September 24 compared with last year. The number of new claims have increased by 489 over the same period. Similar experience has arisen with neighbouring authorities who have also introduced a banded scheme from April. While the cost of the working age scheme is higher than in 23-24, overall the scheme is costing similar to 23-24 after adjusting for the increase in overall banded council tax rate and tax base. Tonight, Madam Chairman, I'm seeking members' support for the recommendations as set out in section 2 of tonight's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Do any members wish to speak on this item? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Councillor Jeffries, thank you.
Thank you. The only concern that I have is where it says under 3.5, unless I've got it wrong, that the exceptional hardship relief is only where it's requested. And I just wonder if people have to individually request it, and do they know it's there to request?
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you very much. I'll just add a couple of comments. I'm sure Councillor Bowles will try and pick up Councillor Jeffers' point in a second. All I would say is, in agreeing this, I'm very pleased that we are still able to show the required compassion and able to support this initiative that helps the most needy and the most reliant upon it. I think over the last, I remember being part of a scrutiny review, I think back in 2012, 2013, when the local council tax support scheme was first started in its previous iteration. And it's been very pleasing that over that 10, 11, 12-year period, we've always been considered to be one of the more generous schemes in terms of comparable local authorities. And it's good to see that we've been able to support through a cost of living fund again this year to support those who really need it. So I think a very, very pleasing proposal coming forward to Council this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Bowers, as a proposer, would you like to reply to the speeches before I put the recommendation to the vote? Please do not introduce any new matters.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, thank you for the comments. In relation to the direct question or the comment from Councillor Jeffries, just to put minds at rest, though it does say in the report about that it's upon request, the plan is for anyone that is affected, the transition arrangements going from the 1 year only. If they're still affected, then we will be making direct contact with those people, so that it's not a thing that we can expect them to come direct to us, so that should be picked up. So I hope that will cover that point. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Thank you, members. As recommendations as set out on page 14 of the agenda have been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the recommendations, please indicate. Thank you, members. This recommendation has been classed as unanimous. Members, thank you, members. We will now deal with the agenda item 11, revisions of the scheme of delegations. Members, this report starts on page 18 of the agenda. Please can I invite Councillor Bowers to move the recommendation. Councillor Bowers.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation.
Please can we have a seconder? Councillor Spray. Councillor Spray. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, happy to second, Chairman.
Do you wish to reserve your right to speak, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Spray. And Councillor Bowers, please may I invite you to speak on this matter.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, just to confirm, I'm presenting this report tonight just in my role as the portfolio holder with the responsibilities for the governance function. I'm nothing to do with the planning function. Just basically, quite simply, this report is following the departure of the head of planning and economic growth. The delegations to this role were transferred to the corporate director for growth, just to make sure every decision was seamlessly still happening while we was in the process of recruiting for the role and recruiting a new head of planning. Now we've got the new head of planning in position, and she settled down and assessed where things should be and that kind of thing. We're now in a position to move those delegations now from the corporate director for growth to the new head of planning, and this is basically sorts out all those delegations so they can take place. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Do any members wish to speak on this item? If so, please indicate by raising your hand and keep your hand raised until you have been acknowledged. Councillor Abbott, would you like to speak on this matter?
I would, Madam Chairman, but it might include a question. Thank you for the report, and I understand this is a process change because of a change of staff member. But if the Cabinet member is minded to, could he confirm whether or not the specific drawing out in the report, the discussion about national projects, indicates any change to the delegation for national projects, and especially in terms of the ability of members of this council to be consulted on national projects?
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Spray, a seconder. Councillor Spray, a seconder. Would you like to invite you to speak on this now?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I will. And just through you, Chairman, to answer Councillor Abbott's point, no, there is no proposal to change the way we deal with NSIPs, I think you were particularly referring to. And I'm happy to second this. It made perfect sense when Emma Goodings left the authority at the beginning of the year for the Corporate Director of Growth to take on delegated decisions. But now that Sarah Ashton has been in post for, I think it's probably 4 or 5 months, it equally makes sense for her to deal with delegated decisions. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Spray. Councillor Bowers, as proposer, would you like to reply to the speeches before I put the recommendation to the vote? Please do not introduce any new matters.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, just finishing up, I guess just to thank you for the couple of comments in regards to what Councillor Abbott's point is I'm not aware of any changes, but we may have a situation in the future where the government takes it away from us, so things may change as going forward. But as far as things at this moment, I'm not aware of any changes from the previous, just a delegation point for tonight. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Thank you, members. The recommendation is set out on page 18 of the agenda. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favour of the recommendation, please indicate. Thank you, members. This is a unanimous action. Recommendation has been approved. Thank you, members. We will now deal with agenda item 12, Governance and Audit Committee Annual Report. This report starts on page 22 of the agenda, and this report is for noting only. Councillor Wrench, please may I invite you to speak on this matter. Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The purpose of an audit committee is to provide those charged with governance independent assurance on the adequacy of the risk management framework, the internal control environment, and the integrity of the financial reporting and governance processes. By overseeing both internal and external audit, it makes important contribution to ensuring that effective management arrangements are in place. The Governance and Audit Committee performs the functions of an audit committee and as such is a key component of the Council governance framework, providing independent and high-level resource to support good governance and strong public financial management. The CIPFA Audit Committee's Practical Guidance for Local Authorities and Police 2022 identifies the importance of holding audit committees to account on the extent of which it has fulfilled its purpose and recommends the preparation of an annual report by the committee as a helpful way to address key areas of accountability, including whether the committee has fulfilled its agreed terms of reference, adopted recommended practice, ensured development needs of committee members have been addressed and whether committee members are accessing briefing and training opportunities, assessed its own effectiveness or has been subject to a review and considered conclusions and actions from that review, and finally assessed its impact on the improvement of governance, risk and control within the authority. This report summarises the work undertaken by the Governance and Audit Committee in the year 2023-24 up until August 2024. The Governance and Audits Committee role in the provision of assurance on governance, internal control and risk management arrangements is a key delivery to all Council priorities and corporate objectives. To provide ongoing assurance over the Council's internal controls and systems, the committee meetings in 2023-24 were attended by the Chief Executive, the Corporate Director, Head of Finance, the Audit, Insurance and Fraud Manager, the Financial Services Manager and Committee Services, as well as representatives from, as we've heard previously, BDO and the Council's, who are the Council's external auditor. Operating effectively, the work of the Governance and Audit Committee enhances corporate awareness of the need for internal control and implementation of agreed audit recommendations, increases public confidence in the objectivity and fairness of the financial and other reporting, and also reinforces the importance and independence of internal and external audits and other similar review processes, which provides additional assurance through its processes of independent and objective review. To conclude, I would like to express my thanks to those officers, but also the members, and I'd just like to highlight on page 31 of the report tonight the attendance by members, which has been far greatly improved over this year. So I do thank members for their high attendance, but also active engagement. Certainly, I must say at times, absolutely terrifying, those external auditors, and I do hope, I know Phil Myers wouldn't mind me pointing out, our Head of Finance, to echo what I said earlier this afternoon or this evening, that they do meet the deadline by Friday, because I certainly wouldn't want to be on the other end of the phone having to respond to Phil come Friday if they don't meet that deadline. But the committee has challenged, discussed and presented many ideas throughout the year, but also engaged in training and improvement activity to develop the knowledge and skills needed for this key area of the Council's arrangements for effective governance. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wrench. Do any members wish to speak on this item? If so, please indicate by raising your hand and keep your hand raised until you've been acknowledged. Thank you, members, for your responses. I'd like to ask Councillor Edwards to speak first, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm going to speak as the Vice Chair of the Governance and Audit Committee. I really don't have much to add beyond what Councillor Wrench has just said, but I'd like to extend my thanks as well to Angie Mitchell, Mark Jarvis and Phil Myers for their forbearance and assistance on the committee this year. Audit can be a somewhat dry topic, but with their expert guidance, it's much more intelligible for a layman as myself. As Councillor Wrench has said, all of us on the committee really hope that BDO do hit that backstop date of the 13th of December. We actually discovered in questioning at the last meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee that BDO must inform the government if there is any chance whatsoever that they will slip beyond the 13th of December. I've asked too that they alert the chairman of the committee, Councillor Wrench, if they believe that there is a reasonable chance of that, and I'm sure that will be shared with the rest of the council as well. I mean, we are grateful for BDO attending our meetings, but I think as a group we are very disappointed with the way in which they've acquitted themselves when it comes to the external audit of this council, particularly, as was said earlier, the amount of work that goes into the internal audits, preparing them every single year, those statement of accounts, to have our external auditors issue so many disclaimed opinions is really, really disappointing. We, as the committee, will do all we can to continue to strongly challenge our external auditors, who are now KPMG, moving forward, to do their very best work for Braintree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edward. Councillor Jeffreys.
Strangely, I find myself in agreement with Councillor Edwards. Must be Christmas. Yes, so I haven't really got very much to say. Thank you for your comments at the start of the meeting as well. And I think you should also be congratulated yourself, because I think you chair, it chairs very well. And I think the committee would agree with that. And it's been quite difficult and challenging. And it's such a shame, really, that the committee has had to spend, and the officers have had to spend so much time on the mess that BDO have put us in. But hopefully, after Friday, everything will be nice and clear, and we'll be able to move on into the new year and actually be doing what we're supposed to be doing. So thank you very much, as well as the rest of the committee and Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. Councillor Powell. Councillor Powell.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, I've raised it in error.
Thank you, Councillor Pell. Councillor Valdolkin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and Councillor Wrench. Thank you for chairing the committee so well. I just wanted to say a word as a previous chair. It is not the easiest of committees to either chair or indeed take part in. We quickly have to become experts in areas which perhaps we're not always comfortable with. However, not only has the attendance been very good, but I think the quantity and quality of the questioning has been extremely good, and I hope I'm sure that will continue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Valdolkin. Councillor Wrench, would you like to reply to any of the speeches before I ask the members to note the report?
I have nothing else to add, but accept the kind words that have been shared, and I look forward to working with you for another year. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, this has been noted on the report. Members, this concludes... Beg your pardon. Thank you, members. Please can I ask members to note the report? Thank you. Members, this concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for your attendance and participation and patience with me for this evening's meeting, and to those watching on the YouTube's Council's channel. The reporting of this meeting will be published in the Council's YouTube channel as soon as possible. I now formally close this meeting of the full Council at 9:27 p.m. Thank you and good night.